Hey guys, what is going on and welcome back. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be ranking every single weapon in PUBG on the tier list maker. This is the new trend that all the cool kids are doing, so I figured we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to be ranking every gun because I haven't done one of these in a while. I've not ranked every weapon from worst to best, and so this is going to be a little bit of a different format. You're actually going to visually see where I place every gun, and I'll explain my reasoning about why I put the things where I put them. So if you guys want to see more stuff like this, if you'd like to see me rank more weapons, I guess in the future, maybe on this format, maybe in a different format. Either way, if you enjoy videos like this, please make sure to leave a thumbs up on the video really quick. That would be awesome. And make sure that you are subscribed if you are new to the channel, if this is the first video you're ever watching and you would like to see more content like this as well. Now, of course, this list is going to be a bit subjective, and I'm going to be ranking these based on my opinion and everything like that. I'm going to try to basically base them on how practically effective they are. And so there is like parameters for them, but again, this is my list at the end of the day. So if you'd like to make your own list and you would like to tell me how wrong my list is and you want to tell me how stupid my choices are, feel free to go make your own at this tier maker and then send it to my email at idon'treallycare@gmail.com. But without further ado, guys, let's go ahead and get into it. So the way that we're going to be ranking these is we have a couple of different categories. At the top, we have the huge category, which is going to be obviously the best weapons, the most god tier ones in the game. And then all the way at the bottom, we have the yikes category, which is just the weapons that you want to stay away from. And so we have everything else in between A, B, C, D, and F tier. And so we're just going to basically put these how we see fit. Now, it is important to know that some of the weapons are missing from this category here, such as we don't have the MP5 and the G36. So there are a few weapons missing, but we have most of the core guns here, and all the important ones that you guys probably want to hear about are going to be in this list anyway. So this we have quite the selection to go through, and also I shuffled these up because the maker of this put all of the like same class categories right next to each other. So all these assault rifles were just 1 to 1 to 1, and so that wouldn't be very fun. So I shuffled them up, and hopefully this gets pretty interesting, and each choice will be a fresh one. But anyways, let's get into it. Okay, so beginning here, we have the AKM, and where do I put this thing? I feel like, honestly, the AKM used to be, I believe, one of my favorite guns in the game. It caught a heavy nerf later on down the road, and ever since the barrel came out, I really stopped using it. Like, if you pay attention to my gameplay, I don't really think I use the AK at all anymore, unless I have to, you know what I mean? And so, I think the problem with it is that it does shoot really slow, and it can be easily outgunned by a lot of other weapons. If the person could shoot somewhat at all, like, accurately. So we're gonna put the AK, but that doesn't mean it's a bad weapon at all. I think we're gonna put the AKM in A tier. I don't think it's a huge weapon because, like I said, I think there's just some guns that really outdo it, but I think an A tier is pretty good for the AKM. So now we have the classic AWM. Oh baby, we starting off strong here. Where do I put the AW? I mean, obviously, I think this has to go in the huge category. You guys would kill me if I didn't put this in huge. That one's pretty obvious. I don't need to say too much about the AWM. I think you guys are in agreement. This is definitely one of the best guns in the game, like hands down. Okay, so next we have the double barrel shotgun. And so I think that this and the pump shotgun are really, really closely related to each other. So it's hard to distinguish between the two, which one's better. However, I would say that for squads, certainly the pump shotgun's got to be better. But if you play a lot of solos, it's got to be the double barrel. But other than that, like statistically, they're pretty much the same. And I guess they're good for what they are, but they're not anywhere amazing, I don't think. So I'm gonna have to rank this. The double barrel is gonna go to. We'll give it a C tier. It's perfectly right down the middle average. Like, it's not an amazing weapon. It's not bad by any sense of the word, but I think that's a pretty good rating for that where it belongs. Now, the M416, lads. I was waiting for this one. I was waiting for this one to come up. I'm in love with this gun. What can I say? I believe why this weapon is so rated highly amongst a lot of players, and myself included, is because it is physically like the most well-rounded assault rifle, right? It doesn't really have any weaknesses, and that's something you can appreciate. It's also been one of those guns that never really got nerfed or changed in any way since the beginning of the game. They've not really touched the statistics at all, so it's like one of those remaining fossils from the early days of the game. And so for that, I think we got to give the M416 a huge rating. It's absolutely ginormous, lads. Okay, the Car 98. So this one's interesting. I'm debating two different categories on this one, and I'll explain my reasoning. Part of me wants to give it an A tier because the Car 98 is not as good as the AW, nor is it statistically as good as the M24. And so I guess in that way it is somewhat of an inferior sniper rifle, but it's not a bad gun. And I think either way, whether it's A tier or whether it's huge, is still doing it justice to it. I'm going to give it A tier because I think that there are better snipers for sure, But the Carnage is still up there just in terms of overall weapons. It's great, but I cannot give it the huge category. All right, next we got the M16. Now, this one's interesting. Ask me about a year ago what I give you the M16, and it would easily be in the huge category. Pre-nerf and everything, this was the best gun in the game. Like you can't even argue that. Statistically, it was just insane. And so nowadays, the M16 has changed quite a lot, and they've buffed it recently too. They've tried to make it more competitive with the other ones, but I don't think it's quite there yet. I'm gonna have to give the M16 a B tier. So I'm gonna have to give the M16 a B tier. I think it's a very good weapon. However, I think it has a lot of weaknesses associated with it. So I think this is a pretty fair rating for it. If not, I would give it an A tier, but we're gonna have to let this one be in the B. The R45 pistol. Okay, chat. Listen. Don't get up in a knot here. This one I think is a pretty easy choice, and we're gonna go ahead and have to throw this in the yikes category. Reason being is it's not like even the regular revolver, which I don't even know if that is in this list. I'm looking here and I don't see it. Yeah, some of these weapons are missing. Actually, no, there it is. Is because it's not like the regular revolver, which even still I don't think is that good at all, but it's even worse than that, right? It doesn't have the powerful bullets and doesn't have that one-shot kill capacity if you happen to land that shot like the revolver does. The R45, if you land a couple well-placed ones, sure, it can kill, but practically speaking, it's very unlikely you're going to get outgunned by an R45 unless you just absolutely potato every single shot that you're putting out. So I think it's got to be in the yikes just because it's a very inferior gun to most of these here. All right, the M249 LMG, big boy, the actual big boy in the chat here. This is an interesting one. Part of me wants to put this in huge. I think that's where it belongs. The M249 has really grown on me recently, and especially due to the fact that once you learn this gun, you really appreciate how to use it. And so I think for that, we're gonna have to give it the huge category. It is really, in my opinion, the only real LMG in the game. And so maybe that's gonna change in the future. But as far as I'm concerned, the gun's a monster. The gun's a beast. Okay, the M24 sniper rifle, big X crate weapon gun. Now, I'd say even pre-nerf, man, it would still have to be huge. But nowadays, if I'm going to put the Kar 98 at A tier, then that has to mean that the M24 is also huge because it has faster bullets than the Kar 98. It hits a little bit harder, damage is a bit higher. There's nothing that the Kar 98 really does better than the M24. I guess besides reload speed if you have the bullet loops for the K9, but it's like who really cares about that? You know what I mean? So the M24, if we're going to put the K9 in A, then the M24 sniper has to be huge. It's got to be done. All right, the Groza. Wow, we have a lot of these are a lot of solid weapons, a lot of solid choices coming up. Now, I think you guys know my opinion about the Groza, which I think it's very good, but I think it does have its weaknesses. Up close, it's a monster, it's unbeatable, but it's not very good at range. This might be a little bit of a hot take, but instead of putting this in huge, I'm going to give it A tier. Just due to the fact that it is very, very poor at range, and so it's not as well rounded as a lot of these other guns, but it's still a great weapon. So for that, I'm gonna rate it really high, but maybe not as high as some of these other ones. All right, the barrel. I think this is tough because the Groza and the barrel are so similar, but the Groza, I guess, does have a couple things that are slightly over the edge as far as the barrel goes, and so it is hard for me to rank these two. But at least in my experience, the barrel seems to be a bit more well-rounded than the Groza. It's a tough choice at the end of the day, but I guess I'm gonna have to put these there. I love the barrel so much. I love the Groza as well, but the fact that the barrel can do a couple of things that the Groza can't makes me put it at the huge tier, while I'm just gonna have to drop the Groza down just one. All right, the P92 pistol. Okay. So this is, for those of you, this is the one that shoots 9mm, and it's the single fire one. I think I'm gonna put this one in F tier. I think it's probably one of the weakest pistols in the entire game, and no matter what, you have to land a lot of shots. Even if your enemy has no armor or just a level 1 vest, you still got to land quite a few if you want to get the kill. If you've ever tried to fight somebody with level 3 armor using this weapon, it's a disaster. I'm pretty certain that given the right situation, you can put 9 shots into somebody with this weapon who has level 3 armor, and they're still not dead. And so that's pretty wild. So I think that this weapon, just because of its very, very low kill power, is going to have to be an F. I wouldn't quite give it a yikes because it is a little bit more forgiving than some of the other weapons. Like if you miss a couple shots, it holds quite a few in the magazine, so you do have some grace there, but it's the kill power is just not there for me, man. All right, the Mini 14, here we go. Okay, so if you ask me pre-patch, the Mini 14, I wouldn't even have to think about it. I would just throw it in huge right away. There's no questions asked. But if we're talking about the Mini 14 nowadays, I think I'm going to have to go ahead and put this in A tier. We're putting this in A tier because it's kind of, to me, it's kind of like the M16 that shoots a little bit faster. It's statistically a bit better overall. It's kind of like the same relationship between the M24 and the K9, except for this, it's the M16 and the Mini 14. Mini 14 just has a couple of things that edge over the M16, but at the end of the day, the gun can still be kind of weak, and you have to land a lot of shots, especially at range, and especially if your enemy has armor. So it can be a bit of a difficult gun to use, but if it's in the hands of a skilled player, I think it's very, very solid as a weapon. So we're gonna give it an A tier. These guns are absolutely sick. All right, the MK47 Mutant. This is a tough one. Now I will be honest. I don't use the Mutant a lot, so and there's reasons for that. I don't think this is one of those guns that obviously can be very dangerous, but also at the same time has a lot of fatal flaws associated with it. So I think this one's, as far as I can tell, this is gonna have to be B tier. It's pretty much on the same par as the M16, I think, and I think that's a fair rating. It's essentially the same weapon, just fires a different ammo type and handles a bit differently. I think B tier would be pretty solid for this here. All right, the revolver. Wow, I can't actually put this in yikes tier, and the reason for that is because this, like, it holds more ammo than the R45. It hits a bit harder, and I would argue it's a little bit easier to use as well. The only thing that the R45 does better is reload time, really, at the end of the day. So if I'm gonna have to put that in yikes category, I think we're gonna give the revolver an F. We'll put that in F tier. It's not quite at the bottom of the barrel. It's not an amazing weapon either, and so I don't think I can rate that very highly. But I think F tier is pretty fair. I think that's a decently fair rating for that. Next we got the UMP. Now, okay, let's make this clear. There's a difference between the UMP9 and the UMP45, but based on this picture, this one appears to be the UMP9. So, and plus I have more experience with that one, as the UMP45 is still relatively new. So we'll say this one's the UMP9 for now. Where would I rate that? But I don't think the UMP is going to be the first one to make it there. I'd say I put the UMP, it's got to be between C and B tier. Let me think about this. I think the new UMP would have to go in C tier, but I think the old UMP is going to go in B tier. I think the gun is great, and it's certainly, at least in my opinion, one of the easiest guns to use in the game. Like, absolutely. The recoil is so low that if you just want to learn the basics of, like, recoil management and control, the UMP is the best gun to ease you into that, and I think it's a great learning experience. But at the same time, at the end of the day, it's not an amazing weapon as far as, like, its kill power, and I wouldn't really consider running it in the mid to late game, especially against anybody who's somewhat of a decent player, as they will outgun you with pretty much anything else above this list. So I think B tier is pretty okay for the UMP9. If you ask about the UMP45, I think I might drop it down to C tier. I don't think the UMP45 is that good, to be quite honest with you. All right, so now we got the QBZ. Let's take a look at this, shall we? The QBZ is an interesting gun because it's one of those weapons that if I'm playing Sanhok, normally the loot is so good that I don't normally run this weapon, unless it's the only thing I can find. It's effectively the Scar L replacement for this map, and so I think the QBZ is great, and I'm gonna have to give it A tier. We'll put it up in A. I think that's a good belonging for that. It's not quite huge because like I said, the M416 just is better than the QBZ, and that's really hard to fight against. Pretty accurate to me. I think A tier is perfectly where that belongs. Okay, lads, next we got the S12. The way I'm reasoning this one out is I don't believe this weapon is as good as a lot of the other shotguns. It does deal a little bit less damage than the other two, the pump and then the double barrel, but the upside is that you can put attachments on it if you like, and I guess it has it's got a better rate of fire, so you can pop more off. So it is good, but I don't think it's as good as the other shotguns. I think the S12 is going to be the first to be in D tier, and I know that might be a little bit of a lower rating than some of you might put it, but I think that's genuinely maybe where it should go. I don't really get killed by the S12 at all outside of like the early game and when you're first looting. So it's really unlikely that your enemy's going to be carrying one of these unless they're trying to do like a challenge or just mess around, or they physically can't find anything else. But it's not great. It really isn't. So I think D tier is going to be pretty okay for this. Now, the sawed-off shotgun. Oh, lads. Oh, lads. What do we do with this? I feel like this one is pretty self-explanatory. It's going to have to go in either one of two categories, but I believe I'm going to have to put this in the yikes. Welcome to the club, my friend. Welcome to the club, sawed-off. You're the official second nominee for the absolute trash tier weapon in this game. Now, the sawed-off, I think, used to be a lot better when it dropped because the damage and I guess the overall kill potential of this weapon was kind of similar to the double barrel. However, you could just equip it as a pistol. So it was just like having the double barrel as a third weapon in your back pocket. It was pretty unfair, but they changed it pretty quickly. So I think for that, and now the weapon is almost completely useless, especially if you're trying to hit anybody outside of like 10 meters. It's pitiful, man. It really is. So I don't rate this very highly. What does this map appear on? Is it on Sanhok and Miramar, I believe? I don't think it shows up anywhere else, but as far as I'm concerned, man, this is gonna have to be in the yikes bin, just straight in the garbage, man. And I don't really have any problems with putting it down that low. All right, next we got the Scar L. Man, I love me some Scar, but I don't know if it can be in the huge category. You want to know why? I'm going to have to go ahead and put the Scar L in the A category as well, because the QBZ and the Scar L are essentially the same thing. They almost have the same exact functions. They're just almost different skins. They do have a bit of different handling properties, and there are differences between the two, but the Scar L isn't quite there to be in the huge category, in my opinion. But that doesn't mean that A tier is an unfair rating for this. I think A tier weapons, regardless of what you think about them, are going to be objectively good guns to run. And so I got to put the Scar L right by the QBZ, as it's basically its twin, just under a different skin. All right, next we got the SLR DMR. Wow. All right, now this gun is really interesting because it's hard for me to rate, as I think this is one of the hardest guns to use in the game, and it's got the one with like really, I'd say, one of the strangest recoil patterns ever. And so if you're new to this game and you're not really familiar with the weapons, the SLR is going to be a nightmare for you to use. But if you can get good with this weapon and you can really get familiar, I think it's very effective, and it is a DMR, so it is really solid as well. But I'm going to have to give the SLR, I'm going to have to give it A tier. I'm gonna give it A tier. The weapon isn't huge, and you know what I just realized? This list is missing the Mark 14. Like I said, some of these guns are missing, and we're missing the MK. So if I can grab a picture, I'll just add it in. But I would add it in, and the MK14, guys, since it's not here, I'm gonna put, like, we're gonna take a fake one. Let's move it and let's put it in the huge category, okay? So MK14 is going in huge. I think that is easily the best DMR. Way easier to use than the SLR, way more effective, and I have no problem putting it in the best tier, top tier category. So while it's not on this list for whatever reason, I guess the maker of this forgot it. I don't know how, but yeah, MK14 going in huge. That's coming in right after the SLR. So we're just gonna replace it there. All right, now we got the Tommy gun. Wow, pre-patch Tommy gun, easily huge, but current day Tommy gun, it's certainly not as good as the UMP, but I wouldn't put it in D category. I don't think it's that bad. I think the Tommy gun is going to sit very comfortably in the C category, right by the double barrel shotgun. In my opinion, that's a pretty fair rating, because the only reason I'm not putting the Tommy gun as high as the UMP is I don't think it's versatile. You don't have the attachment options like you do with that weapon. It doesn't have the flexibility that the UMP 9 has. So Tommy gun's got to be in C tier, and I think that's a decently fair rating for that as well. All right, next we have the Micro Uzi. I think I know where I want to put this one. I think we're gonna have to set this over in B tier. It's kind of like the inverse of the UMP, where the UMP can handle itself at range, and maybe it's not amazing up close, but it is very flexible. I think the Micro Uzi is like the inverse of that, where it's great up close, and it struggles pretty drastically at range. But if you have enough attachments on it, it can still be pretty good at medium range gunfights. It's certainly better than the Tommy gun as far as I'm concerned. So I think the B category is pretty okay for the Micro Uzi. Now, lads, we have the Winchester, the only really real novelty weapon in this game so far. The Winchester isn't meant to be good, nor do I think it is a competitive weapon. And so for that, I think the rating is pretty easy. I think D tier is pretty solid. I'd rate it on the same effectiveness as the S12, and I'd say it's pretty accurate. Now, it does have a very high kill power. Like the damage is almost as close as the Kar 98. It's not quite there, but it is close. I'm pretty sure you can just one-tap headshots without a helmet. I believe it does 99 damage to the chest with no vest. So while it cannot one-shot just with somebody with no vest, you can get them down to literally a sliver of HP. And so it is pretty good in that regard, but it's a harder weapon to use, and it does struggle a little bit. You cannot put any sights on it. So for that, I think D tier is pretty solid. Now we got the Vector. We're going to consider this the Vector that fires 45, not the 9mm one. And this Vector was very, very strong. It was a great weapon. I didn't love it when I first played with it in the game, but I really came to appreciate the weapon, I'd say, as time went on. Part of me wants to give it A tier, and I think I might. I think I'm going to give it A tier. I believe at its time and at its peak, the Vector was better than the Micro Uzi. It was better than the UMP, and I think it belongs up in these class of weapons. And that was, at least as far as I can tell, with the old UMP, this is a decently fair rating. Now we have the Glock. This is the fully automatic pistol. I'm going to give this... actually, you know what? I was going to throw it in Yikes, but I think I might give it F tier. I don't think it's quite as bad as these two down here because it does have a fully automatic capability, and it is pretty usable with the suppressor. But at the end of the day, the damage is not very high, and it is a hard weapon to use, man. Just the muzzle flash and the recoil this thing provides, it's a tough one. It really is. So it's certainly not as good as these weapons above it, and but it's not quite in the trash bin like the R45 and the sawed-off. So I think it's going to sit pretty comfortably here in F tier. The big P911. In my opinion, I believe this to be the best pistol in the game right now, just as far as like overall capability and effectiveness, because it does hit harder than a lot of these other ones, and it's easier to use as well. Simply, this gun is probably the easiest pistol and most practical one to use as well, but it's not as good as something like a Tommy gun, and it is a pistol. So I think D tier is pretty solid for this. You might like a couple of these pistols better than this, but this is going to be my rating. All right, now we got the VSS sniper rifle. So this one's an interesting one. It's certainly not as dangerous as some of these weapons up here in the huge category, so I can't put it there, but it is still a very effective weapon. It's hard for me to rank because I want to put this between B and A tier. On paper, this gun is it's kind of weird because the bullets are very weak and you got to land a lot to get a kill. But I will say this is like the noob exterminator because like if somebody's new to the game, they're going to have zero clue on how to play against this weapon. And even some mildly experienced players have a hard time fighting somebody who's using this against them. But as far as like overall utility, I think we're going to put this in B tier. I think that's pretty accurate to say. It's not as dangerous as the weapons above it, but it is certainly better than everything below it. Like that's no doubt. I think B tier is a pretty solid rating for that. I'm decently happy with this list so far. Now we got the pump shotgun. And if we're gonna rate these as basically being the same, it's got to be in C tier. Yeah, man, the pump shotgun, it's a good squads mode shotgun. Like I said, I think the only real difference between this and the double barrel is that the double barrel is better for solos because likely you're only going to be taking one gunfight at a time, and you want the most like upfront kill power that it can provide. And so having two shots instead of one before having to like reload is better than that. So as far as squads go, if you're going to be fighting multiple enemies, I'd rock the pump shotgun, but for solos, the double barrel. Other than that, there's really not a lot of differences between the two. So it really comes down to personal preference at the end of the day. But I believe C tier is pretty okay with these. All right, now we got the SKS. And why is the picture of this so scuffed? Why did I not just get a regular PNG of the real SKS? I don't know, that's kind of weird. But I know what gun this is. I know what they're going for. SKS is great. Honestly, this gun is actually incredible. And I think for me, if we're going to put the SLR in A tier, part of me wants to give this weapon a huge rating, but I know at the end of the day that an SKS doesn't quite deserve to be in the spot with the Mark 14. I know it's not quite on the list, but as we said earlier, since for whatever reason the person didn't include the weapon, we're just going to substitute it as also being in huge. But the SKS certainly is not as good as the Mark 14. You can't argue that. It's just statistically not as good. But the SKS still is an absolutely amazing weapon. And so I think A tier is where it belongs very happily. A lot of these A tier guns, you guys might substitute for huge. And I would, honestly, on a good day, maybe I'd put it in there as well. So don't think that by any means A tier means that it's a bad weapon at all. A tier is still the best guns in the game as far as I can tell. Now we got the crossbow. So let's talk about this really quick. This is the only weapon that really isn't an actual firearm. And so for that, it is, I guess, another novelty weapon, but it does have a very high kill potential. And I guess if you do land a shot, it can be devastating, but it is very hard to use. The reload time in between shots is very hard to kind of compensate for as well. And practically speaking, it's not one of those weapons that is going to be able to compete with a lot of these ones above on the list. So for that, I think we're going to give the crossbow a C tier. I'd much rather have anything above it in this list. But honestly, if you ask me, if I'd rather have the choice between a Glock right here or a crossbow, I'd actually pick this. So I think C tier is pretty okay with that. I'm happy with that choice. And so for now, for the final weapon, unless I'm missing anything, maybe we'll do the other ones too, and I'll just put them on the list or something if I can add the pictures. But the DP28, the only other classified LMG in the game, but even as I said earlier, I don't classify really this as an LMG. It falls somewhere in its own category, but I think the weapon is very, very good. The DP28 has a super high kill potential. It's an easy gun to use as well, surprisingly, and especially if you can get a nice sight for it. If you go prone, it's got the nice bipod. And so for that, I'm gonna give the DP an A rating. The DP is a very solid A. It's not quite huge because I don't think it's as effective as the M249, but I'm happy to put it in A tier. Now, if there's any weapons we're missing, I'm going to go ahead and put those in right now. So I know we're missing the MP5, and I would go ahead and rate the MP5 as being A tier also. I believe the MP5 is single-handedly the best SMG around, just simply due to the fact that it is amazing. However, it's only in Vikendi, so it kind of sucks if you haven't been able to use it. And maybe it's not on your platform yet. Wait till it is. The MP5 is great, but that's happily going in A tier. The G36, I know that gun is missing. I would also put that in A tier because it's again, very similar to the QBZ and Scar L. I don't know if there's any discernible differences between those two, so I'm going to have to put the G36 in A as well. Okay, guys, you know what I just realized? We're actually missing a couple of weapons. We're missing the Scorpion Pistol, the AUG A3, and the PP Bison. So I'm going to do these really quickly. The PP Bison, I'm going to go ahead and put in B tier. I think it's very safe to say it's among the, like the UMP and the Micro as far as like effectiveness. It's a very standard SMG. I think it's great, but I'm going to go ahead and put the PP Bison in B tier. Now, the Scorpion Pistol is a unique one because I think it's probably the best automatic pistol as far as I'm concerned, and I'm going to put the Scorpion over in D tier. I think it's a good weapon, but it's not really quite there. It's all right. It's perfectly okay. That's where the Scorpion Pistol is going to go. And then the AUG A3, lads, it has to also be in huge category. It's unfortunate that we don't have the Mark 14 and the AUG, like, actually on this list. I don't know why. Those are pretty important guns. But those two also belong in huge tier. So those guns are absolutely incredible. Well, okay, actually, the flare gun, I guess we can go ahead and rate that. Where would we put the flare gun? This isn't I mean, how would we rate that, really? It's not an actual weapon, right? It is, but it isn't. So I don't know. If we're gonna put it somewhere, I'd say we put the flare gun because it does have access to, I guess, a lot of these other huge guns. Let's put the flare gun in huge. Why not? I guess that's where we're gonna have to put it. I don't know. It doesn't really belong on this list, but so be it. But this is basically it. Unfortunately, we are missing a couple guns, like I said, but you know where I rated the ones that are missing. But this is what my list looks like for having the tier list of all the PUBG weapons. Let me know inside the comment section what you guys thought about this, and I will be doing another full official ranking, like from worst to best, when a couple more weapons do come out later down the summer. So expect another video kind of in that format. But if you enjoyed this tier list rating, make sure to let me know inside the comment section, and drop a like on the video if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're brand new around here, and I really appreciate you guys for watching. If you haven't already checked out my second channel, make sure you do that as well. Links in the description. But I hope you guys enjoyed this anyways, and like I said, if you agree with my list, great. If you disagree, then feel free to make your own tier list, and let me know what you think. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching once again. I really appreciate you, and I'll see you all on the next live stream or the next video. Have a good one, guys, and peace out.